Fellow heroes and Force users of all ages, hello there, and welcome back to Inside the Tauntaun, a podcast in the multiverse of fandom. I'm Daniel Dawson, and I'm joined by my friend and fellow nerf herder, Dino Nicandros.
Hello.
Today we are discussing Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, written and directed by Ryan Coogler, and by God, we're Marvel fans.
I don't know who you are or where you came from.
I am Iron.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Smells like a new car in here.
Inside the Tauntaun, this is our opening song. Alyssa, Daniel, Dino, talking nerd stuff, come along. Inside the Tauntaun podcast, please like and subscribe.
All right, I've seen it.
We have seen it.
We have seen it, but you and Alyssa saw it. When did you see it?
I saw it, well, technically, I guess the night before opening night.
Okay.
So, which, I mean, it's like, it's the new opening night. I don't know why they just don't say it opens up.
Thursday night is the new opening.
Thursday night is the new opening. Yeah. And it's not even a night anymore. Like, you can see it like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So I don't really completely understand that. Oh my God.
Did you see it in IMAX?
I certainly did. Is there any other way?
I certainly hope not.
For goodness sakes. No, a movie of this magnitude, it really deserves nothing less. It was quite beautiful. Generally speaking. I know we usually start with our general thoughts, but I generally started with tears and also ended with tears. So that was nice bookends to this lovely tribute to Chadwick. Yeah, it was just very well done, and leaves a lot of possibilities for the future.
Yeah.
It was exciting, well written, and delicious, beautiful things to look at. There was some great performances as well, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, but like throughout, like multiple characters like impressed me numerous times.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, ditto.
Anything to add?
Well, and I think it's an important starting point in acknowledging that this movie is a memorial service to Chadwick Boseman as much as it is to T'Challa.
Yes, definitely.
And that's difficult to navigate, both from a sensitivity standpoint and a storytelling standpoint.
And truly, I was very curious how they were going to do it, because there was a lot of ways they could have gone about it, and I think that this was absolutely the best way. I don't think that they could have done it any better than this.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's almost as if they leaned into the reality of what actually happened.
Yeah.
And
that being said, they didn't lean into like his actual illness, which I think is good, because it really that's not the story that they're telling.
Well, they didn't need specifics, but the fact that he was taken by a mysterious illness, which they never tell us what it is, and it's not important.
No.
But it is.
I guess never be important. It probably
I don't know why I was expecting something else, but I'm really,
I guess, kind of same.
happy they did that.
Yeah, I think same. I don't know if that was what I was expecting, and I was glad for it, because I think that there was a lot of ways they could have done it that, like, because that this is why I'm not a writer, but like, I just thinking about the different ways they could have done it, I was like, oh, that feels awkward, and like, I don't know if they should do that. I mean, like, they could do that, but yeah, and this was I think by far the best thing that they could have done. And oh my God, I don't know if you got emotional at any point in the film or not, but for me, the odd thing for me was it was the Marvel fanfare like intro. Sans fanfare. It was completely silent, and
a montage for T'Challa.
I swear to God, you could hear a pin drop in that movie theater. It was deathly style, and it was just like the chills that I got. I get chills thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful moment, and very sad. And I just
I saw the movie a week later, and after the opening montage had ended, it received round of applause.
Oh, yeah.
And a wonderful tribute to him. But going back to the fact they led with his illness. I mean, they used his illness
as the launching point.
As the launching point. It's such a poignant and heartbreaking yet beautiful parallel to what actually happened, because it feels unfair.
Totally. And just like and for most people except for him, it became upon, well, and obviously I'm sure his most close loved ones, but
his closest people, and I remember Ryan Coogler saying that, like
his real small circle.
Less than a handful of people.
Yeah. So it felt like that too, like to all the people in the film. It was just like, how is this happening? Like it happened so suddenly, and it just, totally a perfect parallel.
And such an interesting launching point for Shuri's journey, because we've come to know her in fits and starts, and then she has obviously a much bigger role in Black Panther, but.
And really, there's no. I mean, I know there was a lot of speculation beforehand about like who the next Black Panther would be, or if there even would be a new Black Panther, or if there would be lots of Black Panthers, like a whole grab bag of Black Panthers. But I mean, I really do think that there wasn't a better choice, like at least out of the people that we already know.
Yeah, but what I think that moment at the beginning does so beautifully is that it sets up her limitations, and the limitations of her genius, and not how she has to... you can't solve every problem with your immense intellect. Like some things just happen,
and her having to find peace in that, and kind of like her whole arc, more or less.
Well, right, and the big thread in this movie is,
even though she actually does eventually fix it.
Yeah, no, but the big thread in this movie is her battle with faith.
Yeah,
which was such an interesting twist. I'm not sure I was anticipating. Although
me neither.
It
wasn't really like a faith versus science, but kinda.
Not even. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. It's just it was in a way. It was like I believe what I see and can prove.
Well, because she even talks about they have discussions about the ancestral plane, and she's just like, oh, that's just like a vision that you get because of Dadoop.
Well, yeah. Well, that scene.
Not like you're actually going to the ancestral plane.
That scene with her mother, and she was like, it's a projection that just brings you comfort.
Yeah, which is really.
And her mom bites back at her and asks her, well, what projection brings you comfort?
Yeah, right. And it really is. It's like a it's a reality question.
Yeah.
Like what is reality? What is real? And it is what you perceive, really. So, I thought that presented a very cool and it's neat that they didn't really spell it out either. Nobody in the movie ever said, "Oh, this is legit." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just kind of left to your own devices to sort of, mull it out for yourself. Or like kicking the can down the road for another director or writer to hash that out, whether or not they want to like actually say if it is or not. That being said, I think that like especially with this almost this entire last phase. Speaking of, this is the end of Phase 4.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Which actually, I wasn't. We knew that was going to be the case, but
yes,
I wasn't sure why necessarily this movie was chosen as the ending for it, just because of what we know the larger
story
is. Like maybe Doctor Strange would have been a better fit, but having seen this movie now. And all of the implications therein, I was like, oh yes, this was the ending to Phase 4.
It does feel kind of like an end. Well, and it feels like an end and a beginning, like a very much a transitional kind of thing. Because I think it's very safe to say now that Phase 4 was about mourning.
It was grief,
mourning, and
moving on. I mean, learning to move on, and this is all. Stemming from the blip. I mean, we deal with the grief from the blip, and it's funny that you mentioned that too, because I was doing some reading and some YouTube diving and all sorts of things.
but because I was just curious about the original script, and like if there was any word about like what that was, and nobody has like a copy of it or anything like that, but
Ryan Coogler talked about it,
but he did, yes,
Yeah.
and he did say that it just as much as that it was kind of that, like,
yes,
talking about T'Challa being gone for 5 years, and then he was always going to have a son, and basically missing like the first 5 years of his son's life, which is like, oh my God, and like how cool. I mean, it honestly, like, I mean, it does feel a little bit like an old story, like an old hat, like, because we're at the end of Phase 4 and we've already been dealing with all these other characters that have had the exact same kind of not the exact. Everybody's had a different journey with being blipped or not being blipped. But it would have been really cool because I know that they were gonna like kind of like lean into the the theme of fathers being like ripped away from their kids,
Yes.
and there's obviously a very real parallel to like real life, not his the actor's real life, but just real world implications.
Right.
So it would have been a very interesting story to tell, but obviously this is...
But what was interesting is Ryan Coogler said the script, amazingly so, even though they had to completely restructure it without T'Challa being there, he said the story didn't change that much.
Right, yeah.
Which is incredible.
It is kind of
That's
incredible.
an incredible feat in and of itself that they delivered that,
Totally.
and a lot of the pieces were still in place.
Yeah.
So
like numerous
it's
people
not like-
were going to not make it. He wasn't. I think that the people that, like, for instance, what's her name?
Queen Ramonda.
Crete Ramonda, yes. Her character, I think, maybe originally wasn't supposed to die, I think, and then that became like a new thing. But there was another big character that was supposed to die, and I think that they switched at the last second. I'm not really 100% sure why. Although it's funny because I also read in an interview that like when she read the script for the first time, she was like, why are you doing this? Like, people are going to be so upset that you're killing off my character. But obviously she gets it, and she was just like, yeah, this is heavy. This is gonna.
Well, and I would call Letitia Wright the obvious MVP of the movie. And
yes, she killed it. She literally was really really great.
All the different colors she paints with in terms of. It doesn't. There was a real trap, I think, and I don't even think trap is the right word. I don't think trap is the right word considering the circumstances of this movie. But she could have easily, her character could have been wallowing in grief the entire movie. But
totally,
what you do get to see are bits and pieces of the Shuri we remember.
Totally,
who is so full of joy and is enthusiastic and
but then there's
I think that's where Dominique Thorne's character.
Oh yeah,
Riri Williams brings some of that out of Shuri.
I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about that character. I also, like feeling. I was worried that she was gonna feel like she was just like shoved in, to like sort of.
She serves a very real purpose.
Purpose, and also just like her performance in general is just so endearing, and she's so charming.
Yes.
She fit in perfectly. Yeah. It was a great addition. I don't want to like touch on it too hard, but I will say that I knowing what we like heard about like during the pandemic, like the actress who plays Shuri, forgetting her name right now.
Letitia Wright.
Yes, thank you, Letitia Wright.
Yep.
Am I crazy that like there was like some controversy going on about like like some Twitter things and la da da.
And where she stood on vaccines and whatnot.
Right.
But
I guess now that the that we're getting sort of past the pandemic, and that like the idea about vaccines is not as I'm just curious that they obviously worked out their differences.
They settled it, and look.
Maybe they just had a conversation where they were like, listen, I mean, you're fine to have your like thoughts and beliefs, but just don't share. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I think they all got together and said this isn't about any of us.
Totally.
Like
and what's really important.
They all knew what this movie was about.
To honor Chadwick.
Um,
and his legacy.
but I appreciated her performance
Yeah, same.
so much, and
It was just it was undeniable that like she like deserved the throne, you know,
yeah,
so to speak.
yes,
Even though she's not taking the throne.
Uh,
Just the role of Black Panther, I mean.
right. Well, yeah, her performance was just so nuanced and was
Yeah.
like I was saying, she doesn't as heartbreaking as this story is set up to be for her. She doesn't. We don't spend 2.5 hours wallowing with her. We do get to see her, in fits and starts, be joyful and
and also
and
like her, we got to see a very multi-layered, multi-leveled. Like she also went through a rage. Not, I wouldn't necessarily say rage, but she's vengeful. Part of her.
A fascinating development are the parallels they're trying to draw between her and Killmonger.
Yes,
Eric
me
Killmonger.
too. And it left me very unsettled at the end.
Yes, what a great twist that when she goes to the ancestral plane, she sees Killmonger.
Ooh, man, I got the chills because like the reaction from the audience, everybody's like, "What? No way!" And but yeah, the implications of it, like, of course, if we're going off of her mentality, it's just a vision, so it doesn't really matter. But I mean, if it is real, like, what does that mean for her? And to me, it doesn't feel like it's a good thing.
Well, look,
everybody's very complicated, obviously, and she is a complicated woman.
Kevin Feige kind of set us up, and look, you can believe whatever you want to believe about the ancestral plane or the afterlife in Marvel, but we have learned.
If
you think back to Moon Knight, though,
right? Yes.
When he goes to the afterlife, we are told that there are different planes of existence or afterlives,
and now we've seen at least 3 of them now, right?
Right, and so we have the ancestral plane, we have the Egyptian afterlife. I think they talk about Valhalla at some point.
We see Valhalla
in Love and Thunder,
right?
So I mean, they're setting it up to be
a thing.
Yeah.
And
what was
I
interesting,
think that's also kind of like, and I'm going back to Queen Ramona,
Ramonda,
damn it. Angela Bassett, her like being upset about her character passing away. And then all of a sudden she's like, actually, now that I think about it, it's pretty good. I'm not sure if they told her 100% like what's going to happen in the future, but I don't think that this is the last time that we've seen her. I mean, I'm not saying that she's going to like come back. We're going to see like, zombie queen, but like, I think that she's, we're going to see her in the ancestral
No, she'll
plane.
be instructive. Yeah, she'll be instructive to Shuri one more time, I'm sure.
It's a very like, Jedi like ghost trope.
Well, and maybe this was just me, and maybe it's grounded in my own set of beliefs. But like when I remember when I saw Black Panther, the original one, and T'Challa sees his father in the ancestral plane.
Yeah.
I never questioned whether that was real.
Same. Totally same.
So, but again, that could just be me because of belief. But,
sure. I like the because I mean truly this was the first time that it ever even crossed my mind that it might not be, and I liked having that conflict in myself watching it.
But I think because they've gone to such great pains to set up not only a multiverse but what all that could entail, it's like to hell with it. Yeah, it's real.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I mean like at least with this film, it comes into question. But then again, in not Black Panther, Moon Knight. He is a very, untrustworthy narrator. Yes. So it's like, I could believe that that's also fake too, and just a figment of his, imagination. But the one that you can't really explain away too hard is the Valhalla, because like that felt very purposeful, and it didn't feel like it was just
right,
because they didn't like show I mean, they obviously didn't need to show anything, but it wasn't like a vision in Thor's mind, like it was just,
right.
she's
No,
in
it was,
Valhalla.
and we've seen Jane departed in much the same way Odin did. Like, he becomes a part of the stars.
Right,
right. He, and you have to assume that if it's real in one of these movies, it's real across all of them.
Yeah.
Like
I
the idea of
think it's pretty safe to say
passing
that
on.
they're real. Yeah. Pretty safe.
But yeah, I thought Letitia Wright was the MVP. But speaking of Angela Bassett, I mean, she put on.
She tore apart that script. She was just like, she. Man.
And we'll dig into it a bit when we talk about another
Greek
big
tragedy, like Shakespearean monologue moments. It was
and I was gonna say we'll talk about it when we talk about another big character in a few moments. But her scene at the UN special meeting, near the beginning of the movie, where she's got the American ambassador there and the French ambassador,
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, excuse me.
Which is interesting. It's a new Secretary of State we're being introduced to.
Yes, it's not Thunderbolt.
Right.
But she said particularly the French ambassador is questioning her about vibranium, and it's like we're afraid of the potential of these to be used as weapons of mass destruction, and
lo and behold,
and Queen Ramonda turns it around on her and said, we're not worried about weapons of mass destruction. We're worried about you.
Yeah, right. You spooky ass bitch.
And then they
two-faced son of a...
walk the French mercenaries into the room, and she was like,
it's like such a great mic drop moment. It was beautiful.
And it sets up a much larger conversation about. Well, I mean, it sets up quite a bit, honestly. The geopolitics of the Marvel universe now.
They are. It feels like they are setting up, especially with the introductions of Val, which is also another thing. Like, Val is randomly.
Not randomly.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's not randomly, but like Ross's ex-husband, or ex-wife. I mean, it's just
that's funny. But her inclusion on top of. And we'll get to this after we've kind of talked about the main characters. But,
yeah.
But her inclusion on top of what they're setting up geopolitically, I'm like,
because
we
does
now
feel like...
have a very large arc coming into form.
Yeah, there is a conflict with the governments of the world against Wakanda, and there is it feels like an invasion is imminent.
Well, and the movie sets up the idea. And maybe this is how I'll introduce the next character. The movie sets up the idea that Wakanda is not the only place vibranium exists.
Yeah, wow. My brain.
A big deal.
She's a big deal.
Because it is the cornerstone.
Like, wait,
it's the cornerstone of Wakandan belief,
right?
Religion, almost. That it was bestowed upon them. And now we find deposits of it in the Atlantic Ocean and elsewhere. And now we're setting up an arms race and a very tenuous situation, which I think is a brilliant direction for our earthbound conflicts to go.
Absolutely.
But that brings me to
it's going to get complicated.
I think, if not the MVP of the movie, my favorite character in the movie, Tino Huerta's Namor.
So freaking great.
And what an introduction to this gentleman's.
I mean, there were several characters in this film that I were worried about. I think this by far was the one that I was the most worried about, just because like there are, certain aspects of the character like on paper that sounds so silly. And like, just like wings on the feet and things of that nature. But like, it was depicted in such a cool way. And it just like his acting ability, like the way he was able to, like he treated nothing lightly. It was all very, very serious. I just, I was. Yeah, he had me. He totally got me. I was like, yes.
And
yes.
What a brilliant reworking of one of Marvel's oldest characters.
Yeah, it does feel. It feels fresh.
And for those who might not be familiar with
Namor.
Namor, he was originally in the comics. He's the king of Atlantis, which is an underwater. Everyone knows what Atlantis is, but
Right.
and they were traditional rivals of Wakanda in the comics, so that has stayed the same here. But what they've done is instead set Namor's origins in history, much like Wakanda, like in history we know, much like Wakanda's, and he's now the king of a subterranean underwater kingdom called Talocan, which has origins in the Mayan culture.
Right. And he's
Kukulkan.
Right?
Yeah, Kukulkan. And
I'm saying that wrong.
And how cool. Well, number one, how
I think
cool
a person
for,
who in the movie who said it, the way I loved it, I loved the way he said it.
M'Baku.
Yeah, M'Baku, the way he says it, I'm like, say it again. I love the way you talk.
But what a brilliant and triumphant moment for Mexicans.
Yes.
And for anyone, any Central Americans.
Yes.
South Americans too.
A lot of my Latin friends that had just gone to see it were like shouting from the mountaintops, like, it's a good day to be Latin.
And he does, and like you said, there was a concern that bringing a character like Namor to the screen would be difficult, considering he's got wings on his ankles and has kind of a green bathing suit sort of situation. But he's scary.
Yeah. He's a formidable.
Or intimidating, rather.
Intimidating as hell, for sure.
And seeing him in action with the wings, and I mean,
and also just like an understandable person.
Well, so welcome back to Dino Goes to Bat for the Villain.
Hey, but here's the thing. I mean, I will also go to bat too, because
yes,
this man is a complicated,
very
actual.
So,
I mean, but he just has real reasons that, and I get it. I 100% get it.
So yeah, and there's a fascinating development here. So they really do give us insight into his origin, and his people were Mayans,
right?
And
or Aztec, or is it Mayan, Aztec?
If I got that wrong, I apologize. I don't remember if it was...
Well, I mean, also same. I'm here. I think I can find it. Can I? Maybe I can't. Well, let us know in the comments.
I'll find it.
He'll find it. Come on.
No, he's Aztec.
Okay, he was. Okay, I'm not crazy.
He's Aztec. Excuse me.
I'm not crazy.
He's not Mayan.
I mean, I am
He's
crazy,
Aztec.
but
no, my mistake.
They're close.
Yeah. So Namor's origins in real Aztec history.
Honestly, the only reason why that stuck in my head is because of the basketball game that they play,
Yes.
And just seeing it on the History Channel, I just
and dumb of me to mistake those two. But the Aztecs were, historically speaking, famously wiped out by Spanish conquistadors,
right?
And what happens here is that Namor's immediate family and his tribe end up eating these plants.
Right. Which, I mean, in that point, it's just like, what are you doing eating those plants?
Ostensibly turns them into mutants.
Right. And again,
not accidental.
Big deal. I mean, I know that we've already kind of we had what was the word that they used in Miss Marvel? This is, I mean, mutant. All that to say is that this is the first time that they're actually using the word mutant.
No, she said it. They said it in Miss Marvel, didn't they?
No, they were describing the gene. This is the first time they're saying, he says, I am a mutant, using it as a noun. I think they said something about it as a mutated gene or something like. They didn't call her a mutant. they were just like, it was way more than a tip of the hat, obviously, but I think this is the first time that they've actually used a mutant to describe a person.
But the Spaniards basically driving them into the ocean, and the
which is such an interesting. I think that's really, really cool. Like a very cool story arc, and it makes them so much more like it just. It just gives them much more.
Well, you develop empathy immediately.
Yes,
exactly for Talocan. I mean, these aren't bad people,
right?
They are victims of European expansionism, and it starts to set up a very interesting parallel between Talocan and Wakanda. Which has huge ramifications for the greater story going forward, because in the comics we know Wakanda and what was then Atlantis but now Talocan are rivals, and that bears itself out in this movie. But our ending spot is perhaps with their interests aligned.
Yes, and
these are marginalized, formerly oppressed peoples who once again are you have to figure once the greater world finds out about Talocan, because they don't quite anything Talocan does they blame on the Wakandans.
Exactly. They're like, oh yeah, it's just another couple of which in that of itself is also racist. You know, like they're just
sure. Well, yeah, fine.
Yeah, they're just a couple of Wakandans.
But
oh, by the way, I was just looking up the quote. Oh shoot, did I just lose it? Damn it. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, she says, Kamala, there's something different in your genes. Like a mutation.
Okay.
Yeah. So he mentions, I mean, it's a big deal because obviously they're alluding to that she's a mutant, but this is the first time that they've actually decreed that I am a mutant.
Yeah. But you have to assume once the world finds out about Talocan that they're going to treat them in much the same way they are preparing to treat or have been treating Wakanda.
Yeah. They're like, I want your whatever you got, I want.
But to go back to Tenoch Huerta, he instantly one of the more interesting Marvel characters, not only in Phase 4 but in recent memory. And the reason, one of the big reasons this movie works so well as a bookend to Phase 4 is because Namor plays a gigantic role in assuming they even remotely go down this path. He plays a huge role in the Secret Wars.
Oh, sure.
Wider thing. He becomes a member of the Illuminati.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
And he and Doctor Doom have a very fascinating relationship. This guy is a key piece to the larger Marvel universe. This isn't
just some side
This
character.
is not an inconsequential addition.
Well, I mean, for being one of the it's crazy that we waited this long to get this character in.
Yep.
Because I mean, and it's all due to the DC universe, bringing in, like, he would have been in sooner for sure had Aquaman not come out first. But yeah, it is weird that we're getting this character so late in the all the way in Phase 4, because he's such an important character to Black Panther and just the greater MC Marvel universe.
Well, and so just as we get parallels between Shuri and Killmonger, you see it with Killmonger and Namor as well. And it's this righteous. It is righteous anger.
Totally.
And kind of a
they
twisted
had a right
way
to be
of
angry.
Yeah, of course. It's righteous. And but perhaps going about it in the wrong way, alleviating that pain and sorrow in a way that only brings suffering to others.
Right.
But there was a really interesting article.
And learning to stop the cycle of being the I'm going to the buck stops here kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah, but they also kind of introduced, I thought, an interesting and correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of felt like they were introducing the idea that they thought that T'Challa made a mistake by opening up Wakanda to the world, basically.
Yep.
We shouldn't have done that, kind of.
Yeah, well, and that was always going to be such a controversial move on his part, and a big flashpoint for what Marvel was going to do going forward. But as far as the very interesting dynamic between Shuri and Namor, in which he sort of opens her eyes to the point of view of what it's like to be oppressed. Not that she doesn't know.
Oh, sure.
But she's very much trying to be like T'Challa, a bridge builder, a peacemaker.
Yeah.
And then as she starts to lose things, most of all her brother, but as she starts to lose things, it's why she sees Killmonger in her vision, and why ultimately she and Namora kind of forge a really empathetic and close connection.
Yeah.
Because she understands what his people have been through.
Well, it was it was a very powerful moment for her to be able to go into his city and to see the people, the children, the parents, the people playing games and shopping and doing just like they would in Wakanda, these are a people, just trying to survive. And protect what they have.
Right. And I read a really interesting review from a guy named Alex Brown.
Okay.
From it's a science fiction website called Tor.com.
Okay.
And
is it TOUR?
TOR.
Oh, Tor. Okay.
And I'm gonna quote a paragraph from Alex Brown.
A whole paragraph.
Which I think kind of it puts it better than I ever could. That's why
sure.
I'm gonna read this real quick. He says Shuri and Namor are both operating from different positions of power and privilege. In order to win, Shuri has to break Namor's power by literally and metaphorically putting him beneath her. They don't leave that beach as equals, but as a rising monarch and a fallen god. In how he tries to force the Wakandans to bend to his will for his own personal benefit, Namor is no better than the Spanish who enslaved his ancestors. But in how Shuri strips him of everything and leaves him broken and wanting at her feet, she is also no better than the colonizers.
Dang.
Namor sees Wakanda as a resource to be exploited, while Shuri wants to do what Wakanda always does, hide behind espionage and suffer no consequences.
Wow.
Namor forces Wakanda off its pedestal and to acknowledge the harm their actions have caused others, just as Shuri does to Namor.
Wow. I mean, it's complicated.
Wow. I mean...
It's complicated. I mean, he's not wrong. Yeah. That's very,
I mean... Both in pursuit of goals, which they consider to be the greater good, they are, in turn, setting each other back.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too. It's and I think that was probably one of the most surprising things for me in the film is that they never really... there wasn't a full arc for that. So it's almost like they just started her arc, and I thought that within this film we were gonna see that full arc of her, seeing Killmonger and being like, no, that's not me, and I am now this, and she would have I've learned something and I'm better for it, but I don't think we really quite got that. And I mean, I'm sure that she obviously is her own person and she is going to be her own Black Panther, but I think that she's going to be haunted by Killmonger.
Yeah.
Um,
And she's and whatever happened with her and Namor did not end on that beach.
right.
In what was one of the more brutal fights.
Yeah. Ouch.
I mean,
She freaking ripped his wing off of.
Yeah.
Like, yikes.
But
Hopefully
don't
he
think
gets
for
better.
1 minute that they left that beach with that connection severed.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it when
they've made a vow to each other now.
yeah, well, and when Namor goes back to Talocan and he's speaking with his wife
Yeah.
about what happened,
Mhm.
and this is somebody
She's
who everybody
not
thought
pleased.
this is somebody who his people looked up to as a god.
Right.
And he says, if that hadn't happened, if we hadn't put ourselves on a crash course with Wakanda, and we wouldn't have opened their eyes to what awaits us in the wider world. And now we have an alliance out of it.
Right.
So you could make the argument that we are now stronger than ever because we have
Easily.
opened her eyes.
The United
her being
States
Shuri.
of Wakanda.
So in the end, he kind of gets what he wants, and
Right. I mean, maybe not like 100% like the way he
no,
wanted it
because
to
he
turn out.
he
but
gets humiliated by Shuri, but if you're playing 4D chess and your ultimate goal is the survival of your people,
it's
well,
the
you
long
have just
game.
you've just acquired the help
Right.
of the most powerful nation on Earth,
Yeah, totally.
or so we've been told.
Right. Yeah, at least until they introduce the next one, right?
Well, I mean, you have to start asking questions, and it comes from a very short exchange. But when Val and Everett are talking,
Right.
they're talking about vibranium.
Yes.
And it's like, you won't stop until you dream about the United States having all the vibranium in the world. And she says, that's exactly what I dream about.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just going to tell you exactly how I feel because,
And
duh.
And I was like, well, there's your plot for the Thunderbolts movie.
Easy. And it's interesting because I mean, like, you do look at that, like the scene you were talking about, like where she goes in and they're talking to the French people and the Americans. Wakanda, like, at least to the rest of the world, like, is formidable and potentially like, I mean, it's almost like, you know, it's potentially too much power for any one group of people to have, you know, because it really just it makes everybody when somebody is that powerful and that able, especially the way that they were able to, like, you know, like deal with their French troopers or whatever the hell they were.
Yeah, mercenaries.
It just, you know, they're capable of doing all of that. I think it makes everybody very nervous. They're like, what else are they capable of? It's like if they would wanted, you know, whatever it was, they could snap their fingers and we'd have to just like bend over and take it and be like, yeah, sure, whatever you want, Wakanda. And that I think that everybody is worried that it could be maybe you know, obviously they're oh, there's your kitty. Everybody's worried that
my Black Panther,
your little Black Panther just made a little, oh gosh. What was I saying? Oh no, your Black Panther. Oh god.
No, you were talking about the rest of the world questioning whether one country such as Wakanda should be able to wield this kind of power.
Well, yeah, and I think that it's because, you know, their intentions, obviously Wakanda's intentions right now are like world peace, like let me help, especially since they opened themselves up and been like, yeah, I'll give you this really cool technology.
Well, right,
so that
and
you
previously their policy was to remain quiet and hidden from the rest of the world for the very reason that we're seeing now, that the rest of the world was never going to trust them with the kind of technology they have access to.
So T'Challa doing what he did has now really tipped the balance of the world order. New World Order. Hello.
Yeah. The title of the new Captain America.
Yeah, I'm not
movie.
sure if this is, any is what it's gonna really have, but it's probably gonna have a little bit to do with it, maybe. But yeah, so he has tipped the balance of the structure of the balance of powers, and so I think that, I mean, obviously, eventually, assumedly everything would be settled and feeling a little more even keel, but who knows?
Well, yeah, and that is at the crux of T'Challa's decision was, I mean, great power and great responsibility. So by opening yourself to the world, Wakanda can now openly and freely help nations from a humanitarian standpoint, particularly those on the African continent,
Right.
which this fellow Alex Brown wrote in his article. He goes on to talk about Wakanda having ignored its African neighbors as they suffered.
Totally.
And did they have a responsibility to step in on their behalf?
Sure.
And so now they have the ability to do that out in the open. But
Right.
as we were just talking about, the consequence of that is you're going to have a lot of suspicion and
Right.
outright hostility.
Yep.
And now that we know vibranium is a resource that exists in international waters,
And who knows where else?
and Namor is already onto the fact that the United States and other countries are trying to mine it. And,
Yeah, they want
and
it.
We see him spending time disabling their ability to do so.
Right.
And
Well, I have an interesting question for you.
Hmm.
Because I was presented with this question in my research as well. But something I didn't really even think about, because, back when we saw the first the first Black Panther, we weren't thinking like way out there in the universe, like the bigger picture. We weren't really thinking about those things. We're thinking, oh yeah, like vibranium came from a meteor. Sure, that's great. But then now that we're like, the biggest of pictures, like we're thinking about the whole universe. We're also thinking about multiple universes. Where did it come from? Like, I wonder if they're going to ever answer that question. And this is something that I'm not really aware of because I haven't read all the comics. But is that question ever even proposed or answered in the comics? I'm curious because
that's going to have to be one for the fans.
Yeah. If you all know that out there, please let me know, because I am very, very curious. If it has something to do with the something that they might, because I know that the Eternals are coming back. And we have the Tiamat. Is that his name? Tiamat? No. What was his name? The big Yeah. And all the why am I going crazy? What are they called?
Oh, the Celestials.
The Celestials, yes.
Well, and then in Shang-Chi, we're left with questions about where all these different artifacts are coming from, and Miss Marvel, her bangles.
I have a feeling. My at least my bet right now, especially after seeing the most recent Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer, is that it's going to have something to do with Kang. And I'm not 100% sure if Kang is the one who created him in the first place, but I think that he may have, either he did create them or he stole them from someone and, used it for himself. Because I think in Ant-Man and the Wasp, he says, I lost something and I need you to get it for me. It's kind of like the whole crux of the film.
Yeah, I don't know. Because, eventually something is going to have to tie all of these seemingly unrelated
things,
stories together, as we did last time.
Right.
And as I've talked about on this show before, Black Panther plays a huge role in Secret Wars.
Right.
And this is getting a little in the weeds, and we should get back on top of the movie. But but T'Challa, which I guess it will now be Shuri, or a combination of Shuri and others, played an unbelievably significant role in protecting kind of the primary as 616 from complete destruction and making some really, really questionable decisions to do it.
Really?
And it really actually it
That gets me very excited.
it was Secret Wars that kind of put the Jonathan Hickman, well, the entire Jonathan Hickman Avengers comic run always put Namor and Black Panther kind of headbutting each other, and every time T'Challa makes a difficult decision, Namor is always there to say, or makes a decision that ends with innocent people getting killed. Namor was like, "See, you and I aren't that different," and T'Challa's trying to convince himself that it's like, I'm not making these decisions in the same headspace that you would. You just don't care about people at all.
Very interesting.
And anyway, I kind of picked up on that parallel between Namor and Shuri, and maybe they're setting up that dynamic of like, see, you'll learn in time. Maybe you don't realize it now, but we are very much the same.
I'm looking forward to that.
I can't wait to see them. That was electric. Their chemistry
They did have a good
was
chemistry.
really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Another standout, I love Lupita Nyong'o.
She was
plays
so
Nakia,
good.
and she was given such a bigger and meatier role in this one.
Yeah, totally.
I appreciated the trio of
She's so pretty too. God.
Letitia Wright, Dominic Thorne, and Lupita Nyong'o, kind of getting to be out in the field together, and I love their dynamic, and how heartbreaking for Nakia, who we don't find out to the end why she's absent, but
Right.
the fact that she wasn't at T'Challa's funeral, and Queen Ramonda being, kind of off put by that, and Nakia saying he was everything to me. He wasn't just the Black Panther. He wasn't just the King of Wakanda. He was far more to me. And, keeping in the theme of grief and how everybody deals with it differently, and I thought what a cool plot line for Nakia to be, instead of just running away from the world altogether, we find her in Haiti teaching at a school.
Yes.
And not coincidentally, this is a country touched by colonialism, and well, more than touched by ravaged by it, and giving back to a community there.
And also ravaged
kind of in
by,
solitude.
Natural disasters too. I mean,
and corruption and
all the things.
And giving back to a community rather than just wallowing in grief. And I appreciated that aspect as well. And lovely that
That's
Shuri,
called turning your scars into stars.
Thank you so much. But then we find Shuri there at the end of the movie, and Nakia taking up Nakia's offer. It's like, when this is all said and done,
Come on,
there's a place for you there.
Yeah.
And these are two people who have lost everything.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad that they have each other going forward.
But then they have the reveal of the sun.
Yes.
Oh my God. The sun, and he's so beautiful and so sweet. Oh my God.
And implications galore there.
Yes. I mean, the true heir to the throne, first of all. I mean, I know that we will keep on saying we see the kids, they're like, oh, it's the Young Avengers, here we go. But I mean, it's not out of the...
But he is one.
But he is one, so... But I thought that was just such a sweet, wonderful way to... I mean, just his beautiful little smile, and Shuri seeing that, and I think you could just see it was. But her reaction to it, I thought, was very nuanced as well, because there was sadness, there was joy and hope, and also I don't know, that felt like there was also an undercurrent of I'm not sure how to feel about it too.
Well, yeah, because the immediate implication is, it's not my throne, and granted,
right. I'm just a placeholder until he takes it.
And granted, though, the end of the movie leaves it kind of up in the air.
Yeah,
whether she and M'Baku made some sort of agreement,
where
because he shows up and says, "I'm here to
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 challenge the
challenge.
throne,
She's
yeah.
not here, but I'm here to challenge her for the throne. And you kind of wonder if, because that's another relationship I really love, is M'Baku kind of being an older brother or an uncle in a way,
Sure.
just having her best interest at heart. It's like, look, at the end of the day, it's your call what you want to do, but
He was
just
funny
understand.
in this film.
Yeah. Winston Duke, I appreciated his
So
performance.
great.
a
Him
whole
and
lot.
Okoye. Actually, Okoye. I mean, like her performance in this was. I mean, like they gave her such a multi-layered she got to really like have fun in this. Like
and
she was funny, but then it was like
and
also
not
sad.
fun. Yeah, and dealing with grief in her own way.
Totally.
And then being stripped of her rank.
Yeah. And having Angela Bassett yell at you. Oh my God, I would be so.
Well, yeah, and then and think about
so devastated if Angela Bassett talked to me like that.
Well, and think about what Okoye has had to sacrifice. I mean, she kind of became an Avenger during the 5 years in which
Right.
everybody got zapped away, and she she worked closely with the Avengers to kind of keep the world spinning, and
now she's got a dope ass suit.
But yeah, I love that they were all given their moments to.
It really
to
didn't
grieve.
feel like a rehash. It felt like everybody got to like stand on the launching pad that was Black Panther and then take off. It did feel like a step forward. It was and for that it was great.
Which, in the absence of T'Challa, is the right call.
Yes, and
making
quite
the
remarkable
focus
too.
Spreading the focus around.
Mm-hmm. That is true, because you're right. It probably we might have not gotten as much of an ensemble performance as we did if it weren't for the absence of Chadwick.
Right, and these were all of them were all pieces of T'Challa, and they all influenced pieces or parts of his personality.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
He was the sum of all of them. And now it's a beautifully heartbreaking theme of like now you have to find out who you are on your own.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Without your relationship to him.
Sure.
And what does Wakanda look like without a king, and then without Queen Ramonda? And
God, I know
they've lost three rulers in the span of 7 years.
Right.
I'm trying to think
Give
of the
or
Marvel
take.
timeline, but
I think
the
so.
king is killed in Civil War.
Right.
And then T'Challa, I guess that's
And
6
almost
years
Shuri.
later, 7 years later, and then Ramonda, and then nearly Shuri. They need a stabilizing force, and that's why I wonder if Shuri spoke to M'Baku, was like, look, I can't be here right now.
Yeah. And I need like.
And you clearly want a leadership role.
Yeah. Right. Just take it. I don't want that.
You lead the Jabari. You've led the Jabari. Like, you clearly want a leadership role. I'll be the Black Panther.
Yeah. I will be an agent for you.
Right. And maybe that's what's going on here, or maybe
That's kind of how
he,
I took it.
I don't know.
Yeah. It
Didn't feel sinister on his part, so I don't.
No, it was like smiles all around, like nobody booed him or anything like that. I was just kind of like, yeah, here he comes,
But it also sets up. I apologize for citing Secret Wars so often, but it's
gosh
just
darn it, Dino.
Just because that is the crux of phases 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, we're
even 7.
We're gonna eventually get there.
But in Secret Wars, Shuri is the Queen of Wakanda, and T'Challa is the Black Panther.
Oh,
so perhaps that dynamic is now in place where we're just kind of changing characters, but
right.
M'Baku is the King of Wakanda, and Shuri remains the Black Panther.
Interesting.
That kind of what it felt like to me. But
no, I get that for sure. Yeah.
To go back to Riri Williams.
Oh yeah, I have a question for you about that.
But so a lot of this movie, exploitation is at the heart of it. So if at the first level is the grief for T'Challa, then we get into the geopolitics of it and the exploitation. And she's a student at MIT. She's basically paid by her fellow students to do their do their projects.
It's hilarious.
But then we find out she developed a vibranium detector,
right,
that the United States government
is using,
and then cast her aside, and now she is she's a fugitive, or she was for part of the movie a fugitive of justice, and how a government exploited the genius of a kid. And
my question about her, and I'm curious what your thought is, and we're getting a show for her,
yes,
so
yeah.
Obviously I assume
Ironheart.
we'll get that answer soon. But do you think that she was mentored at all by Tony, or do you think it was all just like remade?
So Ryan Coogler actually answered this question.
Oh, he did? Oh, good.
He basically said no.
Oh.
And that he actually said her connection to Tony Stark is a complicated one.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, well that's
I don't know
very,
what that means.
Yeah,
but,
that's kind of.
He said he leaves it very vague, which I assume, as you said, the Ironheart series is going to
touch
fill
on
in the
that.
blanks for us. But
Assumedly,
there's an obvious appreciation for Stark tech.
Yeah, she's obviously very fascinating. I mean, because you
she's
could
built
see
an Iron Man suit,
for goodness sakes, and there's very clear, like when you go into, well, she even says it. She's like says a line when they're in her like little workshop, not little, a giant workshop, and she has all of like the Stark like schematics on the wall. She even says like, oh, like I have like these Stark things. I mean, like, where did she find those? Like, was she given them, or did she take them, or like? Yeah.
So my guess is if there is going to be a relationship, it has not yet been forged.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that,
that we might be getting an AI version of Tony.
Yeah, if we were ever to see Robert Downey Jr. again, it might not even be a see so much as a hear.
Sure.
Like, a Jarvis-like situation.
Sure,
which
sure.
I think would be.
I mean,
I think even hearing him without seeing him.
Oh, it would mean so much to a lot of people for sure.
It would mean, and it would be awesome, but it also wouldn't be undoing his death.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean?
You're
like,
not wrong.
I feel like if we are able to avoid seeing
not
him,
actually him,
right? If we never physically see him, but we get to hear him, there's a comfort in that.
Yes,
but there's still the finality of.
Now the only struggle that they'll have with that is how to, and yeah, it would be quite the tightrope as to how to have him be a mentor in a sense, like have a presence, but not like completely overshadow this brand new character.
No, I think you're right. Making sure any possible Tony Stark return doesn't overshadow what's going to be a really compelling, I think, story for Riri.
Yeah.
And I was reading today, and I think it might just be a rumor as of now, but I believe Shuri is going to be in.
Oh, cool.
Not in Armor Wars, excuse me, in Ironheart.
Neat.
So they'll continue building
their relationship.
And I
wonder about Okoye too, because we got that new suit.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe. One way that Tony most easily would be connected to Riri would be the fact that he funded like pretty much everybody at MIT. Like you got a project, right. I'm funding it. You got a project, I'm funding that too. Everybody's got a project.
What was it called? The September Foundation?
Yeah, I think so. So I mean I mean, if they didn't use that as a little in, I would be surprised. But yeah, I'm excited. I think that Phase 4 was very a very necessary transition. Post Endgame. I think that we needed to have because I think it wouldn't have felt if they just kind of moved on like past it and didn't think, we didn't talk about any of it, I think that it wouldn't have felt real. Like, I think now that we've actually had like the time to quote unquote mourn and grieve, like these characters, they're just placed in reality. Like we empathize with them. We feel like they're more real than they actually are. But I am curious too. Like, I mean, I'm, not getting too off topic, but now that Phase 4 is over, what were your thoughts about Phase 4? Where does it sit for you in the grand scheme of the MCU?
Well, I think you said it was necessary. It was in some respects smaller in scale, and others
quite all over the place.
Yeah, quite. It was uneven, but
yeah, I agree,
and kind of chaotic. But I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing, because
some of that is some of that's by design, but then other it's not so much,
right,
just because of the circumstances.
But Marvel really started swinging for the fences in terms of what they could get away with, and without having Tony and Steve primarily,
right?
You had to find a way to push Marvel forward, because you couldn't ride on their backs anymore,
right?
And I think it opens them up to very interesting storytelling possibilities, and a lot of great actors got to
do stuff,
show their stuff in this universe.
Yeah.
You think about Elizabeth Olsen and Simu Liu and Letitia Wright, who was already established.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
And the list goes on.
And a plethora of new
Oscar Isaac.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend, you mean?
Yes.
And a plethora of new creative teams too.
Right. And new voices in the room.
Cultivating new talent.
Right. And
I mean, quote unquote new to the MCU at least.
And representation in general, and I think
that too,
Marvel really
especially
stepped up its game in that respect.
Very much, yes.
In a genuine, in a genuine fashion.
Totally.
I mean, between Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, and Black Panther 2 alone,
oh my God,
think, and Shang-Chi,
and they're all so different,
all so different,
vastly different,
and the fact that they all still live in the same universe is really cool, and it makes the idea of them interacting all the more interesting.
Very exciting. Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be pretty thrilling. I know
what ended up being your favorite project from Phase 4?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think
movie or TV show.
I think, oh gosh, okay. If we're talking about movies, I think fairly easily it's No Way Home.
Okay.
I think that I think it just excitement and emotional impact, this like all the above. I think that it affected me the most, movie wise. Show wise, I think we're still sitting with why am I going crazy? The first one.
WandaVision.
Yeah. WandaVision I think is still affected me the most. Yeah. I just, it was a perfect blend of mystery and wonderment and touching, like surprisingly touching, and gave us one of the greatest quotes ever from Marvel. What is grief if not love persevering? My God, what a beautifully poetic quote out of from an AI, no doubt. So yeah, it's I think those two are and if you were gonna put a gun to my head, choose between the two, I think I'd say No Way Home still. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. What about you?
Okay. Honestly, I think it's a cross between Loki.
Yep.
I was a big fan of Loki.
Loki was easily my number 2.
Because I just spent the whole time. I'm not quite sure what was happening at any given moment.
Yeah, same. And they're like truly like that. I think it was like episode 4, maybe it was the one where both he and wow, what's his
Mobius?
face?
Mobius?
Yes, yeah. When they both got pruned. That was some of the best television.
Well, and then
period. I was just like
then
that.
the finale.
And the finale, yes.
He Who Remains. I mean, setting up the whole idea of where Marvel is going. That happened.
Kind of a big
Loki.
deal. Kind of a huge
deal.
deal.
That kind of has to be a default for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and people are going to disagree because of how the show was kind of rattled by the pandemic and how things had to change. Falcon Winter Soldier.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
I loved seeing Sam come into his own.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because I mean, you are at least
I'm in a
the people
minority.
that I know you're
I'm
definitely
in a very small minority.
Yes.
I just also love not only Steve Rogers but Sam. I love the convention of Captain America and putting him at odds with a world, as far as Sam is concerned, putting him at odds, him protecting a world that doesn't necessarily want him.
Yeah,
there's something fascinating
were
to me
very
about that.
Fascinating for sure.
And the whole story with Isaiah Bradley, I thought was
very compelling.
And then that he was finally given recognition.
And from what I understand, it's not the last that we're going to see of him, too.
No. I think between those two, I think those were my favorites. And then I think if I had to pick one on big screen, yes, I mean, No Way Home, of course, was up there. I think it is Black Panther.
Yeah,
honestly.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful film. And you know what? We've been so spoiled, like getting, all of these TV shows with like, hours and hours of content, all squeezed into, a short little boopity boop 2-hour film. But they managed to put in so much, and it didn't feel rushed. No. It definitely felt I felt I want more, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it also didn't feel like that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Either. So yeah, it really was. Would you say, I'm curious too, Black Panther 1, Black Panther 2? Because the reviews, I want your opinion first.
I'm well, the reason I'm struggling with it because
I mean, honestly, I feel your struggle. Because I have thought about it too.
It sounds blasphemous, but I lean to.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if it's blasphemous.
Well, because it doesn't include T'Challa.
I hear you. But it did. It really did, though, because we felt the weight of T'Challa the whole time.
But I felt like because the movie had to be carried by more than one person, that it ultimately lifted it to
greater heights,
a higher plane than to the immense height of the first one.
For sure, I totally feel that.
But and I think even if it's not better, which you could make an argument that it's not, and I wouldn't disagree with you. But even if it's not better, the hurdles it had to clear to land an effective and resonant story without being disrespectful or insensitive. Totally. I think that it has to get credit for that. And I think I was just in awe of what they were able to achieve.
You're absolutely right in that sense. Like there are, you could compare it to we've had, unfortunately, numerous other projects where they were hoping to have somebody for the film and then ended up, having them pass away before it came out. Star Wars too. I mean, Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker, for instance. gosh, what was I thinking? I was just saying that they there was that way of doing it, and then there's this way of doing it, and I think that this way was better. I can easily say that. And I yeah, if I were gonna choose between the two, I think I would say the first one, but I think only because of because it felt like I think just being introduced to Wakanda for the first
new.
time is just it's
Yeah.
new. I'm a typical consumer, so I'm just like, ooh, brand new things are cool.
Well, it was newish. I guess Civil War was the first introduction.
That's fair. That is totally fair.
It was the first time we spent a sizable chunk of time in Wakanda.
Yeah. Reviews wise, this one, you could easily say that they're reviewed basically the same. This one, the second one was slightly lower, I believe.
Yeah, it was 80. I think 84 is where it's sitting on Rotten Tomatoes now.
Yeah,
but
which
Black
again,
Panther was over 90.
But I think you're right, because the second movie definitely gains a lot of it has like, in D&D terms, it gets a lot of like extra. Oh my god, my dog is like freaking out about something outside. Maggie, it's okay, puppers, it's okay. Maggie, come here, boo boop. She's pissed. She's not pleased. No, but it gains extra points for having to like literally walk a tightrope while juggling fire, and it was a really hard thing that they did, and they nailed it. Yep. And that needs to be recognized, because it was no easy feat, and they managed to make a very poignant, touching, and exciting film.
Well, and I think too, it balances the smaller, intimate, emotional moments with the big set pieces, which I think exceeded. I think the CG in this one far exceeded.
Yeah.
If I had one qualm with the first Black Panther, was some of the special effects seemed a little off.
Sure.
A beautiful movie to look. It was beautifully shot, but I'm talking specifically about some effects. This one was so beautifully done. All the underwater.
Joke was made in what was it? The She-Hulk. Remember that Kevin said that the effects department like had moved on to different projects, and it's definitely this one for sure.
Well, and Black Panther had the unfortunate distinction of coming right before Infinity War and Endgame.
Yes, right.
I mean, several months before Infinity War, and I'm sure they were working overtime to make sure that was in good shape. Anyway, that's not to say it wasn't good, but I noted in this one was that the imagery was so distinct and beautiful, especially that all of the Talocan underwater shots were fantastic. The giant whales. I mean, the big battle at the end.
And you see some of the behind the scenes. A lot of the stuff is starting to come out like on TikTok and elsewhere. But like, a lot of the stuff was like not CGI. A lot of it they actually filmed in water and like jumped like some of the scenes where they I think there's like a really it's the scene where he like they're on the bridge and then the guy like leaps out of the water in slow motion. You see him for the first time. Like that was all done like legit. Yeah. I mean, there was a blue screen involved for sure, but like the man like actually like leaped out of the water. Like it was pretty cool shot. But yeah, lots of it felt like they had a little more money this time.
Yeah, or they definitely dispersed more of it to the effects, and
I could see that.
And you could tell it was top notch. Even the Namor flying through the air and battling the jets.
So cool.
How quickly he moves, and they nailed that. They really nailed his character in action.
I just have to really quick just say that like I have new buttons. My I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but my dog has buttons to press, like word buttons, and we just added "I love you," and she literally just like was screaming at something outside. Obviously, she was upset because somebody made some noise, no doubt, or somebody walked by that she just was not pleased about. And afterwards, I just heard her. She went over and she pressed "I love you." And I don't know why she pressed "I love." She was just like, "I love you." You know what? I love you.
I'll take it.
Yes, I love you too, Maggie. I love you too. I'm not sure if she was saying it to me or if she was barking at the person who was passing by, like, "Hey, you! I want to make sure that you know that I love you."
Ridiculous.
Oh man. Oh, geez, sorry about
Well, so it sounds like generally we liked it.
that. Generally, yes, I'd say it's quite nice.
Yeah.
It makes me thrilled for Phase 5.
Yes.
It was a nice close, and yeah, I'm excited to see where it
And as
goes.
we've reiterated several times, just a wonderful cinematic send off for Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure the memory of his character and him in reality will continue to
Easily will live
exist
for sure.
in the Marvel universe. And
No doubt.
well, all right, that was Wakanda Forever.
It was. And indeed, Wakanda Forever.
Indeed. If you are enjoying the show, follow us on our Instagram at Inside the Tauntaun.
Yes, do that. We do all of our announcements and such.
Yes, that's where our announcements are. You can see us on YouTube. On the YouTube,
Yes.
Search Inside the Tauntaun.
You can see me doing this.
Give us the
and
little
this.
subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Join us. If you like seeing our faces,
Or even
in addition
Maggie's
to
face.
audio,
Maggie, come here.
or even Maggie's face. Maggie's making an appearance.
Maggie, come here. She's like, absolutely not.
Maggie's not.
She's like, I don't do
Maggie's not
YouTube.
camera ready.
I don't
She
want
does not
to do that.
She does not. She's not on camera talent.
She's looking at me with the most confused face. She's like, what?
Alyssa is battling the seasonal
She's on
illness.
assignment.
She's on assignment deep inside Wakanda.
There she is.
Oh, there's Maggie.
is. It's Maggie.
There's Maggie. But Alyssa sends her best. We wish her a speedy recovery. I think she's got a version of what I had a couple weeks ago, which really knocked me the hell out.
Oh, so this is your fault.
It's going around. Yes, I gave it to her through microphone transmission.
I knew it.
But we'll be all together soon. The Andor season finale is tonight,
It's
and
tonight.
tonight being the night Daniel and I have recorded this episode, so that'll probably be
A little bit of a time
Wednesday when it's out. But I can't wait for that. I hear it's
I'm
52
definitely
minutes
staying
long, and there's a post credit.
Oh, there is.
So
God, that's amazing.
Star Wars fans, buckle up for that. We'll be talking about that very, very soon.
Thrilled.
In the meantime, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And,
Oh my God. Happy Thanksgiving, Dino.
happy Thanksgiving, Daniel.
Oh my God.
Hold your friends and loved ones close.
Yes,
And
do.
and take stock of all the good in your life. And
Mm-hmm. There is good.
there is good if you know where to look for it.
Lots to be
And,
thankful for sure.
But yeah, we'll be back with you very soon with Andor, and then what comes after that?
After Andor? Oh, well, I mean, we do have the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special coming out soon.
We do have
Yes.
that.
And that may be a thing. So look out for that. We also
Yeah.
are going to be talking about. I mean, assumedly, because I think we did say that we were. So, but we have said these. We've made promises that we didn't intend to keep before this. But we do want to talk about Tales of the Jedi at some point. Because
yes,
it was
Tales
a
of the
really
Jedi,
really great installment to the Star Wars universe.
And then I guess the next big Marvel offering is Ant-Man.
Yeah, very exciting. Thrilled. That's a big deal.
Which I think will kind of take on the role of furthering the larger Marvel plot.
Kang.
Looking forward to that very much. All right, as always, I'm Dino Nicandros.
And I'm Daniel Dawson.
May the Force be with you always.
See ya.
Inside the Tauntaun podcast, please like and subscribe.